James was born on May 28, 1995. He had an older sister, Alexandra, who was about 7 years older. She described that they had a great home life and had many animals, including horses, dogs, and cats. When James was 7, his parents divorced, and he went to live with his mom, Nicola. James was still very close to his dad and sister.
Your perfect son, your perfect brother, your perfect friend. He was a saint. He was just a person that you had to have just met. If he was still alive, it would be nice, because he really loved just life, and he loved nature, and he loved animals, and he loved gaming. I mean, gaming was his biggest thing, but he never caused trouble. He never snuck out, he never did drugs, he never drank, he went to college, he took care of my mother when she had breast cancer. He was really a good child.
He met many people in the gaming community, but he had several friends from school, including a friend named Melanie, who eventually became his girlfriend. On November 17, 2016, Nicola called 911 around 12:52 a.m. She told the Palm Beach County dispatcher that someone had stabbed her son and he was bleeding.
He's an ambulance right away. Somebody came in and stabbed my son, and he's bleeding, and he's almost unconscious. Please get him.
Ma'am, I have them on the way. I need you to calm down. Where is the person that stabbed him?
We don't know. The front door is open. They came in. I was sleeping, and his friend was over, and his friend woke up and found him stabbed.
Okay,
He's dying.
where is he stabbed at?
He's stabbed by his shoulder.
Okay,
He's dying. Please get us. He's bleeding.
Ma'am, I have help on the way. SOU on the line?
Yeah.
I'm still here.
What is that vein, guy?
By his neck?
Jugular vein.
Okay. Do you have someone have a cloth to put pressure on?
Yes, we have to try it right now. Please get him. Is he breathing? You don't know?
I need to know if he's not breathing. Okay. No, sir, I have them on the way. I need to know if he's unconscious, right?
He's unconscious, yes.
Is he breathing?
No, he's not breathing.
The police arrived just a few minutes later. Inside the house, they found a very bloody scene. There was blood on the floor, the bed, and in the hallway. James had been stabbed in the chest and had several other stab and slice wounds. He eventually died of his injuries at the scene. In the kitchen, the police found a knife with a 10-inch blade and grooves on the handle. It was determined to have been the murder weapon, and it had been moved from the floor to the kitchen counter. There was no forced entry, but the police did find a cell phone with a pin case on the back patio table. There were 3 individuals inside the home at the time of the attack: Nicola, her boyfriend, Guy, and James' friend Jeff. The witnesses told the police that the cell phone belonged to Melanie, James' girlfriend, who had been at the house earlier that evening. The police learned a lot of information from 3 witnesses. They learned that Melanie and James had started dating in high school. James was a year older, so when he graduated, Melanie dropped out and got her GID. They both had been attending Palm Beach State College and even had one class together. James' best friend, Jeff, was interviewed first. Detective Sean Oliver learned that Jeff had been staying overnight and had fallen asleep around 9:30–10 p.m. Jeff said James had been playing video games and had woken him up and told him, "I think it's over." Jeff said he went back to sleep and woke up again to James running around the house, turning a light on and screaming about the help. Jeff was very emotional and said he had used his hands to try to stop the bleeding. Jeff's sad guy came into the room and attempted CPR while Nicola called 911. Nicola said that the evening was normal. They had a family dinner. James and Jeff just hung out in James' room. Guy admitted to being the one to pick up the knife. He said he wasn't trying to tamper with evidence, but thought someone would have stepped on the knife if he hadn't moved it. The witness stories all were the same. The police didn't think they had anything to do with James' murder. Nicola was asked if Melanie had been involved, but she said no and that she was very shy and timid. Nicola had nothing but good things to say about Melanie. About 30 minutes after the police had arrived on the scene, Melanie's mom arrived at the scene. She told the police that Melanie had left earlier in the evening and had been very upset. Melanie's mom said she tried calling her but wasn't getting an answer. During the investigation, the police received a phone call from James' dad. James' dad said he had been in contact with his son a few hours before he was killed. James told his dad that he was going to break up with Melanie. His last text message to his dad talked about how the breakup was going to hurt a lot. A search warrant was obtained for Melanie's phone. They found a gaming app where James and Melanie had been communication through. At 9 p.m. on November 16, James told Melanie that he was breaking up with her. Melanie was obviously that she was upset and hurt by this. Melanie's parents were interviewed. They admitted that Melanie had left the house about 45 minutes before the murder. She had driven away in her white car at a high-rated speed and was upset. The police canvassed the area and found a surveillance camera on a neighbor's house. On the footage, Melanie's car can be seen driving into the area just before the murder and speeding away just before the 911 call. A bellow "Be on the lookout" was put out for Melanie and her car. The police spoke to Jeff again. They learned that in 2014, Jeff had moved in with James and his family. Jeff eventually moved out because of Melanie. Jeff said that the girl was very controlling and clingy. Melanie would get upset if James told her that he wanted to hang out with his friends. Jeff said James had tried to break up with Melanie before, but she would always threaten to hurt herself. Jeff said a year before she murdered, Melanie admitted to pouring bleach into his expensive saltwater aquarium and killing some fish. Jeff described her as clearly mentally unstable. Melanie's family tried to distance Melanie and Jeff. Melanie moved in with family members in Maryland, but by August 2016, she and Jeff were back together. The police received a phone call from the highway patrol that Melanie's car had been seen going through a turnpike plaza within 15 minutes of the murder. Melanie had been using her credit cards at various gas stations and ATMs on her way to Silver Springs, Maryland. Melanie had been in contact with her cousin before and after the murder. The Palm Beach police contacted the Maryland police and asked them to check if Melanie's white car was at her cousin's house. It was, and 24 hours later, the police were telling Melanie's cousin that they were there to make sure Melanie was okay. Melanie came out of the house a few minutes later. On the body cam footage, Melanie can be heard asking when she should come in to be questioned. Melanie then breaks down and says she's afraid.
Hi, Melanie. We got a call to make sure that you were okay. Any other questions for us? What's going on, Melanie?
I don't know, I'm just scared.
Okay. What are you scared about?
I'm just wondering, when should I go in for the questioning?
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, we haven't been told anything. Like I said, they just wanted us to talk to you about, make sure physically and emotionally you were fine is all.
400, I'm direct. I'm gonna head that way till I hear further.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, so we just made a check.
So we'll come back and knock on your door, Monkey.
On November 18, Detective Sean Oliver drove to Maryland to speak with Melanie at her cousin's house. It made it clear to her that she wasn't in custody and didn't get her Miranda rights. Detective Oliver told Melanie to tell her side of the story. Melanie said James broke up with her and told her that for months he didn't actually love her. Melanie said she cried for hours but then became very angry. Melanie said she did drive to James' house and grabbed a knife.
You need your side of the story because we have other sides of the story. Do you understand? Basically, everything shows that you just drove over there with the intention of killing James, which is really bad. But if it's something like heat of the moment, passion, you were trying to defend yourself, this is your opportunity because you're not going to get another opportunity.
Would I be provided with the lawyer before I say anything?
Are you going to be? We're not going to provide you with one. You're just going to come to the station and talk to me. That's just as
Yeah,
volatile.
we're just going to talk to you. We're going to bring you right back. You're not under arrest.
We're there with the intention of hurting James.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so isn't that, it just happened, I'm assuming, is that right? You didn't do it on purpose. You didn't go over there armed with that knife because I know that knife was there when you got there. You didn't take it with you, right?
Melanie was asked how many times she stabbed him. She said she didn't know and didn't count, but thinks it was more than once. Melanie told Detective Oliver that she was still in possession of her bloody shirt and handed it over to him.
I'm not like that.
I'm looking at you right now. I'm with you.
I've never been violent. I've never done anything violent before.
Melanie was arrested on November 19 and charged with second-degree murder. Before her first trial, Melanie's defense team filed a pretrial motion to have her confession thrown out. They said Detective Oliver had made the decision to not give her Miranda rights or give her an attorney, which she had asked for. The judge ruled that she hadn't been in custody at the time, and Detective Oliver didn't need to tell her Miranda rights or provide her with an attorney. The prosecution said that Melanie became angry after James broke up with her. Melanie drove to James' house, tried to salvage the relationship, but became angry enough to grab a knife. Melanie's defense team blamed the murder on Guy and Nicola. They said Guy was a real killer and Nicola had been covering up for him. They also said that Guy grabbed the knife and put it in the kitchen, hoping it would be washed. The jury deliberated for 2 days, but couldn't come to a decision. They believed Melanie was guilty, but they couldn't decide whether it was first or second-degree murder. At her second trial, she was found guilty of second-degree murder. In April 2019, Melanie was sentenced to 50 years in prison. James' family was very pleased with the sentencing. So, young agents, James' family and friends have already been through so much. The defense blamed Guy and Nicola, who had already been through a horrific event. Melanie tried so hard to hold on to James, but he wasn't going to put himself through this relationship anymore. So, what do you think about this case? Write down in comments below, and thanks for watching this episode. See you in the next one. Bye.